So as Derek introduced, I am a senior here at University of Richmond, majoring in biology, minoring in physics, and I'm on a pre-med track. And this summer, I had the lovely opportunity to be back home and interning at a hospital that I live right across from. So it was a nice walk every morning. And so the one question that I wanted to pose for this presentation that I hope to answer for you guys by the end is, how can awareness and advocacy make a difference in healthcare? So I want to start this presentation off with a number, 169,936. That's the number of unintentional injuries that happened in 2017. And now unintentional injuries, that seems like a kind of weird word, but another way you can think about it is like accidental injuries. So that it can include falls, poisoning, burns, accidental firearm discharges, car wrecks, and one that's specifically pertaining to Tennessee is ATV injuries. So if you happen to be under the age of 21, you happen to be in Tennessee, and you also happen to suffer from one of these injuries, you will most likely be treated at the Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt. And so this is one of the top children's hospitals in the nation, and thanks to about over 400 physicians who are specialized in over 30 pediatric and surgical specialties, the 200 children we treat every day are very well cared for. And one of the things that I think makes this hospital really great is part of its three-pronged vision, which is to serve as a resource that is responsive to the community. So the program that I interned with specifically is the Pediatric Trauma Injury Prevention Program, which is a real lovely mouthful to tell people when they asked me what I was doing this past summer. And so what this program specifically is supposed to address is traumatic injuries, which kind of falls under that unintentional injuries umbrella, but it's more has to do with an external force. So the crashes, the falls, that's what this program is supposed to specifically address, but we do address unintentional injuries in general. And so our mission is to reduce unintentional injuries among children and promote safe behaviors in the community. And we do this through an abundance of programs. And so down here we have our ATV safety program, our Kohl's Stay Seat Smart program, which is towards making sure you put in your children's car seat safely. Our Safe Kids Cumberland Valley, Safety for Children with Disability and Special Needs, and our Be in the Zone BITS program, which I'll talk a little bit later about in the program. And this is just a handful out of like 10 plus programs we do in this, in my department. So, injury prevention, it kind of falls like treating or preventing a disease. You have to identify the problems, identify the risk and protective factors of that problem, and then you develop a strategy in order to attack that problem knowing all of this information. And so, where do you start? You start with the data. So since the summer after my sophomore year, I've had the pleasure of doing research with my mentor, Dr. Grayson, who also happened to be my mentor for this fellowship as well, in researching the effects of natural disasters on the population dynamics of non-human primates. That's also a fun mouthful. Basically what it means is I look at the effect of hurricanes on primates. And so this type of research requires a lot of data. We use this small island in Puerto Rico called Monkey Island that has about 60 years worth of data on over thousands and thousands of monkeys. And so looking at data has been something that I've been able to draw on from the past and use in this internship. And so with healthcare, with big problems, we have to look at big data. And so this is just an example of the type of data we look at. So this data comes from the Fatality Analysis Reporting System, also known as FARS, which helps provide, which provides the fatal injuries that result from car crashes, and it provides all of this information to the CDC, to the government, and most of all, to the public. And so through my internship, we were able to look at this data, which, as you can see, like it keeps on going all the way to the right, and it starts here at 10,001, and goes all the way down to 481,237. And this was just, again, in the year of 2017. That's how much data we have to look at in order to see and find this problem. And so for us, being in the children's hospital, we decided to look at age. How many of these drivers were under the age of 21 when they were involved in a fatal car crash? And so we use this lovely variable here, age, and as you can see, it ranges from 19 to all the way here at the bottom to 89 years old. And so through this data, we were able to identify that out of the 74,863 crashes, we had a little bit over 16,000 teenage drivers who were involved. And so when you look at these statistics, you see about 17% of the crashes are caused by a little bit less than 7% of the population. So teenage drivers who are 15 to 19 years old are about twice as more likely to cause a crash than any driver who's about the age of 20 or older. And so we've got step one of this problem down. We know what the problem is, what makes teenagers more at risk to get into accidents, and what protects them from getting into those accidents. And so when you look at the risk factors, we have, of course, race, age, gender, cognition, driving experience. So the less you've driven, the more likely you are to get in an accident. Boys are twice as more likely to get into a car accident. I feel like that comes as no surprise to anyone. But we also have protective factors. So being aware, having strong relationships, having positive examples of you around you can help prevent you from getting into those car crashes. And the last is developing and testing prevention strategies. So now we know the problem, we know what helps exacerbate the problem or what can help prevent that problem. How do we develop a program that can properly and effectively address that issue? And so at the Children's Hospital, we have the Be in the Zone BITS program. So this is it's a two-phase program, and the first phase is what I was directly involved with this summer. It's a hospital-based program it's about a day long, and we basically address the during and afters of a car crash. So you'll hear from kids who have caused car crashes, families who have lost their children to car crashes, people who have actually been involved in car crashes and who haven't died, and who didn't pass away, sorry. And then you also go through what happens if you live through car crashes, the accidents that you would have to go through in the following months. So you can see that in the bottom right project, the kids had to put on a full knee immobilizer, had to go on crutches. We made them go use the stairs, try and sit down and get up to really try and nail in how serious the after effects of these accidents can be when they're not fatal. And so that's just phase one of the program. So we give these kids this information, we show them how serious it is, the reality of this problem, and then we move on to phase two, which is where we start focusing on those risk and protective factors. So our second phase focuses on taking those kids who are involved in the program and promoting them to their schools to start a year-long awareness campaign. And so through this awareness campaign, it's basically a competition between schools so that kids who have better campaigns, who we see have effects in their schools, that more kids are not texting and driving or are trying to spread awareness of the message, are more likely to get more points and thus win a prize at the end of the year. And so we do this by looking at the research. So as I had shown you earlier, positive norms are a huge protective factor. And so when we look at the research, we see that teenagers are more likely to exhibit a behavioral change if, first of all, we give them some type of component for self-management, and second of all, which is most important, is when they have positive peer relationships to be inspired by. And so through these two phases, we take that problem, we take the risk and protective factors, and we address it through this two-phase program that works both in a short-term and a long-term effect. Now, these aren't the only prevention strategies you can use to attack problems. So other things that I did this summer was, on the left here, we did a lot of community-based events. So we went out to festivals, out in parks, out in the middle of the dead heat, in order to bring awareness to families, in order to bring awareness to children about the importance of either car seat safety, wearing a helmet when you're biking, also back to the teen driving. We also do, at the top middle there, a newsletter that goes out each season to the families that tells them specific safety tips to whatever season it is. So for the fall, we go over safety tips for Thanksgiving, making sure to watch the turkey while children are running around. On the bottom left, we also address minority groups. And so this is a Spanish-speaking based class we have on teaching parents about car seat safety. And on the right, we basically set up an exhibit in the hospital so that families who are just wandering around waiting for their loved ones can learn more information. And so from my experience here at the Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt, I learned a lot of great, amazing things and how effective being aware, being an advocate can be in the healthcare community. But I think it's also important to take in, there's a lot that I didn't show on these slides. So the BITS program, for example, it requires funding. It requires a lot of time and effort. And in the long run, you don't see results straight away. So we've been running this program for about 4 or 5 years. And while we see results in that, the kids self-report that they're more aware of their problems, they're more likely to not text and drive. We still have yet to see actual statistics in that there are less car crashes in their area and whatnot. And so as an individual and as, of course, a pre-med student, this opportunity provided me a lot to think about in that medicine is more than what you see on Grey's Anatomy. It's more than action. It's also about education. So being aware of these issues, being an advocate for these issues is very important, not only in your day-to-day life, but especially in your health. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to Derek at the CCE for organizing this and to everyone who contributed as well.